Hey, Kevin here, and just going to do a little progress video, give you some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years when we're installing the walls. And so what we're doing is I'm standing in the kitchen. The ceiling's all done up here, and so now we're starting to put in, and you always put your lid on first, just so you know, and then you put your walls on underneath. And what we're doing is, this is all some construction grade plywood that we're using. We painted it. It's all going to be behind cabinetry, and you're virtually not going to see this at all when we get done, because the uppers and lowers, there's probably about a gap like this, and this is all going to have a backsplash of some sort, whether it's tile or whatever, we're not sure yet. So you're not going to see any of this, so I cheaped out on it. This was $15 a sheet versus almost $40 a sheet for the pretty stuff, and so since you can't see it, we're not going to worry about it being pretty. So what you have to do then is we're having to, take each one of these sheets just like you would if you were putting sheetrock on, and notch it and cut it so that it'll fit around all the various protrusions and so forth that are in the wall. So what are those? Well, we have a window, so I had to cut around the window right here. I've got plumbing coming out right here, so on this sheet we punched a hole here to let the hot water pipe come through. And this is an outlet box for the counter, and so outlets, and then we have some other things that we're going to run into. So this one I got away with real quick and dirty because there was nothing coming through there, so we just put the sheet on and that was it. So the next sheet, again, we're gonna deal with an outlet up here. I have an outlet down here, and I have a gas pipe coming through. So we have to make all the measurements so that we can get those inside our sheet where they belong, so that when we set the sheet on, they fit, right? So it makes a little bit of, tricky measuring, because you want to stay pretty tight around these boxes. Now, that being said, this box is going to be inside a cabinet, so you're not really going to see it, and the one down here is going to be behind the stove. So but if you're out in the middle of your walls out here somewhere where that's going to show, you don't want a great big hole or a wacky looking hole, because you want to put a face plate on here to trim it out and cover it. So if you get too wide, you're not going to have a plate big enough to cover that up, and then you're going to have a problem. Now with sheetrock, you get a little bit of a grace here because mud fixes a lot of transgressions, if you will. But typically you want to stay as tight as you can to these. So in this case, this is my kitty cat assistant trying to trip me. The other thing we're going to do is we're always going to take our measurements from the top down and from the sheet that we're connecting to over, so that we can center that in wherever it is we're going. And the reason is I'm going to push this sheet up. The framing is designed so that the height of it with the double top plate allows me to lift my sheet up off the floor, whether it be sheetrock or plywood or whatever you're using. You don't want it touching the floor. You want to lift it up a little bit, at least a ½ inch, if not an inch, and we're doing about an inch. And that just keeps it from, if there's ever any kind of a problem in the house, you get a water running around from a pipe breaking, whatever, it's not going to get to that wood or that sheetrock and suck it up into the wall. That's from my restoration days, just so you know. So you want to do that. So we're pushing this up, so we're just going to come from the top, the ceiling down for our measurement, and from the edge of the last sheet over to get accurate measurements to cut these out. So let's go outside and take a look at where we're at on this sheet. And we'll talk about a couple of tools that make it easier to get this done. So we went ahead and transferred those measurements onto this sheet, and we've cut out the 2 outlet box holes. And so what I did was I measured them all out, penciled them in so I knew where they were at, and always double check your measurements. That's measure twice, cut once. You don't want to throw a sheet of this away. It's pretty expensive, plus the time and money we've taken to paint it and get it ready. So what I'll do is I'll start a pilot hole with this spade bit. So 1-inch spade bit gives me enough room. I mean, there's more than enough room to get my blade in. So I'll just come over to the edge of this and punch a pilot hole, and then I'm going to come back over and finish cutting out that hole with a jigsaw. And those are really nice tools to have. This is a DeWalt. I don't sell DeWalt tools, but you know, it's a good tool. I've had it for a long time. It's worked good for me. Buy the best tools that you can afford. I would say that about any of these. And we'll probably put a link in the bottom below the video if you want to go see these. Anyway, so you got a little pilot hole so you can run this, and these are really nice because the blade is small enough, it just reciprocates up and down, that you can turn it and you can make radius cuts. So the first thing I would do is go ahead and stop up here at this corner, and then I'd back up and turn the blade as I'm cutting to come around onto this next edge and go forward again all the way to the stop point. Do the same thing around each corner, and then you can come back around and clean the corner out by coming back this way from that cut and knocking out those little corner pieces that are in your way. Makes it nice and easy. It's variable speed, so you can run it at pretty slow. Oh, I don't have it plugged in. So you can run this at different speeds. I'm just going to pull it, so I can go that slow, or I can go really fast. So it allows you to really have a lot of control over what you're cutting. And of course, keep your fingers out of the way and wear safety glasses so you don't have anything fly up in your face, because it does blow a lot of air as a part of the process to blow the shavings out of the way so you can see what you're doing, and it can come back up at you. So the other thing I like to do is I have to punch a hole down here for that gas pipe. This is the bottom of the sheet. And I've marked my spot right here, and the pipe is probably a little over an inch, but not quite an inch and a quarter. And so my 1-inch spade bit I could have used, but it wasn't wide enough. So you can get a nice assortment of those spade bits at different widths. You know, everything from probably, you know, 1/8 or 1/4 inch on up to 1.5 inches. And so having a nice set of those is good, because you're going to run into this stuff throughout the building process. So the other thing I have is these little hole saws, and I have a set of these. Now these are not real expensive hole saws, but I've had these things for 20 years, and you know, as much as I use them, if you were a contractor, you'd probably burn through them faster. But this is an adjustable set, so I can take this larger 2.5 inch off, and I'm putting this 1.5 inch on, and they just have a little collet ring that you spin on and off here, and then you can change out to a different size. Here's another one that's a little higher grade piece that has adjustable collet. You can take this chuck in and out of here, but this is a fixed set, and these are a little more spendy, but they're going to last a lot longer, and obviously this one's for a much larger hole. This one's 2 1/8, and this one's 2.5, I think. Yeah, 2.5. So I use this a lot when I was doing plumbing to go through my framing. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is just put this into my drill, and again, cordless drill, handy tool. This one is an 24 volt, and it's a fast charge, and it came with 2 batteries. I recommend you get 2 batteries and the charger with it, because you can have one charging while you're using the other one, and so that makes it nice. And oftentimes if you buy these, they come in sets with other tools that use the same battery, so you can switch them out and stick them in a different tool. So those are nice to have. So we're just going to buzz this off. Now I'm going to cut this a little bit bigger around, give me plenty of room to get over that pipe. Again, this is behind my stove, so I'm not going to see it. Okay, so that popped out nice, and it split out in the back, but that's okay, because that's going to be on the back side of the wall, and we're never going to see that. Another thing that I like is this is lithium-ion battery power. I've bought a lot of drills over the years, way back when they were just 9 volters, and they were rechargeable battery packs, but they weren't the lithiums. Those came along much later. These will charge faster, get through more charge cycles. The nice thing is they don't typically discharge when they're not being used. That's a nice feature of a lithium battery pack. Whereas the other ones, if they're laying around for a few weeks or a month or whatever in between, they're going to discharge, and you're liable to pick it up and have it be, you know, virtually dead, and then you're going to have to stop and wait for it to charge up. So that's a good thing to think about. And of course 24 volt plus The lithium ions are a lot lighter weight. If you're going to hold this all day, that makes a big difference, and so I would definitely look for a lithium ion type battery pack if you're going to buy cordless tools like this. And we'll put a link in the comments below the video for that for you too. So this sheet's ready to go. We're going to go ahead and take it in there and lift it up and stick it on the wall and tack it on. But I just wanted to go over that with you, let you see a little bit of the tricks here. The next sheet we're going to have to cut out some other boxes too, and then actually split the sheet because it's only about 10, I think it's a little under 2 feet for the next sheet over. So we just got a partial sheet to put up, which is kind of nice because it's a lot lighter to hold up. But anyway, a little bit of tips and tricks on putting up your walls and dealing with all the holes you have to cut and figuring out how to get them done. Okay, so we got it all measured out, and I actually did do a little bit more trimming when I got in here and laid everything out, because framing is not always square. Just gonna give you a little hint right there. Things don't always line up. These boards can warp, twist, cup, get all kinds of goofy even after you put them in and they were straight when you bought them. So carpenters tend to be more wood benders than anything else sometimes. But anyway, we did wind up taking this sheet back down after we tried test fitting it, and I took about another 1/4 inch off the bottom of this hole to get my outlet box centered into the hole. And then we lifted it, and again the wall here is a little lower. Could be the truss, you know, could be, you can notice that there's a little bit of highs and lows along here, and that's why they made this really cool stuff called trim that hides all that. And especially when you're not the master finish carpenter that I'm not, I'll admit that. But anyway, I can certainly get close enough and use trim, which is what we do anyway. So that's it. So that was punching the hole for the gas pipe. We got a lower outlet right here, an upper outlet. This is actually for the microwave, and I think the fan for the hood vent. That's all going to be powered up right here, and that's for this is for the stove, the power to the stove and the gas to the stove. So there you go. So now we're going to measure for this sheet, and we have to cut out for this outlet box and this, what they call, we call it an MOB, which is a machine outlet box, and this is the water valve for the refrigerator. The refrigerator is going to sit right here. So that's what's next. So we're going to go ahead and put this partial sheet on, and we're going to come back over and start working on this sheet, which is going to have another big hole in it for cutting out the window. I got a couple of pipes here and an outlet or a clean out right here for the sewer. And what we may do, because again this is underneath in the kitchen sink, we might wind up just cutting this hole all the way around these 3 pieces. It's okay to do that. Give ourselves a nice big opening right here so we don't have to fight with it, rather than trying to line up all these. This is actually coming out at an angle, and that would just be a lot of fiddling around unnecessarily. And we do that behind the vanity in the bathroom too. You can cut that out, just, you know, make a nice big square here for all the piping coming through. And then we'll probably, let's see, our sheet's going to land, I guess it's going to land right on the edge of this, so we're just cutting the window out over to here. The next sheet we're going to have these 2 boxes right here, which is a set of outlets and a set of switches. And then we're going to come into the door frame over here, and I'm probably going to change out material again. So we'll end this right at the door frame, because we'll have some cabinetry again right here uppers and lowers, and so we're not worried about, you know, spending a lot of money on pretty looking finishes that aren't going to be showing. So there you go. That's the process for the next little bit. We're just going to be hanging the wall boards and staining and painting and cutting little holes all over the place in strategic spots, and that's the next game. You can see up here that we had to put 2 in this one sheet for the 2 kitchen lights that were up here, and we had to line those up to get them in. And I think we're done poking holes in the ceiling, and at least in this area. I think we got one more to do in the bathroom, so yay. Always you know, slows the process down as you're having to go through and make those cuts. So anyway, see you in the next video.